everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 20 of My Hero Academia, season 6. Whoo, we're actually in the last 5 or 6 episodes now. It's kind of crazy. I had somebody on Discord, they were like, so is the longest running series you've been reacting to My Hero Academia? And I was like, no, but it feels like it. I feel like if I had done Ace of the Diamond episode by episode, week to week, that would most certainly be the longest running series. I still think it's the longest running series because I did the manga afterwards. But I think anime-wise, I think Attack on Titan is the most episodes I've done of a series. I think that one is probably the longest, and then maybe Free by the time you count in the movies and other things, but not this series. But it feels like it. It feels like it's been a very, very long season, a good season. I've been happy with it. I've been really excited and happy about it. But it has been a long journey. It definitely feels, I think when you have a series that's 25 episodes, around this time it starts to feel itself. Spy Family was split into 2 cours, and they were months apart, so I don't think it feels as long, but this one definitely feels its length. But that's not a bad thing, because we've had a lot of things happening, and Deku has entered this state where he's decided that he's gonna leave UA, and he's gonna become an adult and do his thing to try to take down Shigaraki. That's been the conversation the last several episodes of, do we think that Deku would kill Shigaraki? And I think the last episode makes it kind of clear that he doesn't want to. He wants to try to save him because that's Deku's whole MO, whether you like it or not. But I think he has acknowledged that if it comes down to it and he has no choice, he'll do what he has to do. But it's kind of sad because I think Deku realizes that at his heart, Shigaraki is just a kid that's not been loved, that needs a guiding hand. But his guiding hand right now is an asshole. It's all for one. It's like, ugh. So yeah, there's been some interesting conversations about All For One on Twitter and the Discord and on comments. And yeah, All For One is just this soulless husk. He's just, it's like everything's a game to him. He doesn't care anymore. There's no like caring at all with him. And somebody commented, I think this is on Twitter, I thought it was really interesting. The idea that All For One just really doesn't have any emotion left to him. He just is playing a game and just wants to win it, right? Everything's just a chess game to him. Whereas Shigaraki has a lot of emotions under the surface. He just doesn't express them, verbally, except to decay things, physically. So there's a lot going on, but yeah, I'm really excited. There's things I want to say, but I can't say them because of spoilers, but I'm really excited about this part of the story to see how Bones animates it and to see how it translates with the voice acting and all that fun stuff. So I know a spoiler about a voice actor, but I'm going to save it till the end of this episode to see if it comes to fruition. So I don't know, but I'm really excited. I woke up this morning, I poured myself some coffee, and I was like, I am ready to watch My Hero Academia and just to see episode 20 and be really excited. So, but I hope y'all enjoy this episode, but we are going to dive right in and see what all happens. So we're going to watch episode 20 of My Hero Academia season 6, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, there was a lot going on in this episode. I've really enjoyed the comments on Crunchyroll, because I usually don't look at Crunchyroll comments, but since I've read the manga, I will afterwards, being like, I wonder what everybody's saying. And there's been so much hate towards Bones for having, and the funny thing is, the hatred towards Bones is people getting mad because the skies are blue and everything, and it's all like pristine and like a clear sunny day, and tragedy will be striking, and they're like, wow, way to go with the mood, Bones. But the funny thing is, in the manga, it's kind of the same way. So it's funny that's the one thing they take umbrage with. But I liked that in this episode, Bones was like, okay, fine, we'll make the atmosphere gloomy. It's great. But yeah, so Lady Nagant, I can finally say her name. I cannot tell you how all I have like watched that OP so many times. I've been like, oh, there's Lady Nagant. And I've had to like bite my tongue and be like, don't say it yet. We don't have her name yet. And then finally we get it this episode. Oh my God. I love Lady Nagant's design. Her design is wonderful with the big poofy dress, the two-toned hair that makes bullets. I love it. I love her design, and she's a sniper. Like her quirk is literally called Rifle. I'm like, yes, please. And she's like taken in Overhaul under her wing. We'll talk about that, but yeah, man. So recapping this episode, I'm glad that Bones made it such a gloomy little atmosphere and everything. And there's little tiny nuances they do with Deku's animation in this episode. Like when he's talking to Gran Torino at the beginning, and Gran Torino's like, you may get to the point where you have to kill Shigaraki whether you want to or not. And Deku's eyes kind of like twitch there. Like he doesn't want to do it, but he's also not going to say anything to Gran Torino. He's like in a hospital, like on, like hooked up to all these IVs. No. Instead, he hooks up. It's so crazy because, as an audience member, you wanted Deku to get to the point where he was working with All Might, Best Jeanist, Hawks, Endeavor. Like, he was working with the top heroes, just not under these circumstances. You just didn't want it under these circumstances, right? That's kind of funny. But yeah, so go past this OP here. I feel like the OP was a little different, but okay, so I've always been so weirded out by these jerks who like kind of assault this giant woman. Like all she is a giant fox woman, right? So she's just this big tall woman, could play volleyball, could be a middle blocker, probably should under different circumstances if Hero Society wasn't like in a panic. But she's just this really nice person, and they just judge her by how she looks and thinks that she's a villain. She's got a backpack and, like, skinny jeans. They're like, well, she should dress better. I'm like, what did you want her to wear, a smock? Like, it's such a blatant commentary that Horikoshi does on people just getting bent out of shape and making these false assumptions and bad judgments based on criteria that's stupid, like how someone looks. Like, it's Horikoshi just pointing out the ridiculousness of it and using her as like a prime example. It's just so sad because she's just a normal person. She's like, I was really scared, so I didn't know what to do. And so I just holed up in my house thinking it'd get better. But then I got nervous, so I decided I'd go to a shelter, and I got attacked along the way. And she's so kind that it doesn't really bother her too much, like to the point where she becomes a villain. But you could see how people that get targeted like that would eventually grow this resentment, right? And so, God, I can't remember in the manga if it was like an air gun that attacked her. Like here it just looks like she's getting assaulted by like water balloons by this guy's tech support equipment, which granted, it's raining. It probably has some force behind it, so it probably hurts hitting her. But then one guy had a giant machete, like he was gonna like stab her. I'm like, dude, what the hell? And then Deku comes in and he's like, hey, she's not showing any signs of hostility. She's good. Go about your business, leave her alone. And, Deku could be a mediator if he wanted to have a job outside of this. If he wanted to become like a social worker or mediator, he's got the right tone for it. And they finally are like Deku's not like yelling at them or anything. He's just like, hey, you guys are smart. Assess the situation. Don't hurt her. And they decide to leave. And Deku's like, oh, thank God. I do love that he's so short compared to her. I love that he uses the quirk of float to like float up in the air and give her the umbrella. That's so cute. I love that so much, where he's just like floating with the umbrella over her. I remember when this came out in the manga, everybody was like, another for Deku's harem. And I was like, well, yeah, she's the wrong gender for that, but sure. I can't say that because he does like Ochako. So, but yeah, we go back to All Might showing up, and he's like, he's like, can you take her to a shelter while I go and do some things? And All Might's like, sure. But All Might, he's like, here, take the bento box. He's like, there's pork cutlets inside, so it'll give you energy. I'm like, All Might being the biggest dad and being like, don't forget your lunch, Deku, while you go on your enemy hunting spree. Like, just him with the little rabbits on it and everything. All Might, stop. And Deku who sees it, I like that Deku's hair's like the mask is barely over his head. His hair's like sticking out everywhere. It looks ratty, but he's just like, oh. And him looking at All Might and then has the face like, oh, thank you very much. Like, even I couldn't remember in the manga. I was going to question whether he actually ate the food or not. There was a part of me that was like, he's not going to eat the food. He just takes from All Might to make him feel better. But then we see him up there talking to the other vestiges, and he does eat the food. So I'm glad. Deku needs to eat, keep his energy up. He's running around like rampant, and All Might's like, you need to keep your stamina, right? And so he takes off. But him just leaving All Might, I do like, there's some really cool camera work in this episode. There's some really good camera work with Bones. I'm like, good job. you made it look nice. And Deku flying away and leaving All Might on the ground. And the thing about it is we've kind of, Horikoshi has kind of shown this succession. Like, we started out with Deku watching All Might save the day from afar. Then we see All Might saving the day, like, when he first meets Deku, or at least he, like, saves the day right before meeting Deku and then giving him his power. And then as the series has gone on, we've seen All Might kind of slowly recede into the background, kind of becoming more and more of that vestige that's inside of Deku, right? And less of a physical presence. And we saw, like, a few seasons ago, while they were training, All Might saw Deku up in the air flying away and was like, that's my boy. But now it's getting to the point where All Might really has nothing to do. He's just, his power is waned so much. All he can do is support Deku from the sidelines. And you can tell that it kind of crushes him because, I'm sure All Might in any situation would take this on himself, but he knows he can't. And so he's like, all I can do, like he told Aizawa, all I can do is just help these kids the best I can and accept that I'm not going to be able to step in the battle anymore. And it's like, ugh. And it's a nice, funny contrast to All for One because All Might has taken the back seat and is like, I'm going to leave it up to the kids to take what I've taught them and put it into practice. All for One is too much of a control freak for that. He will not let that happen. He won't let villains take the roles from him. Even giving his powers to Shigaraki, he wants to take over Shigaraki. He's like the soccer dad that won state that wants his kid to win, like, even more than him previously, right? He just wants to live vicariously. He literally wants to live through Shigaraki, not just vicariously. Literally wants to live through him. And it's fascinating. I do like how the manga handles the vestiges up on the rooftop. I like the idea of making them all the different colors. And they're actually kind of like the reverse color of their color scheme. Like Banjo is kind of orange instead of purple or green. The color usage is great. And he's like, this reminds me when superpowers first appeared. Like, we're going back to the Wild West days of Japan's hero society. Shigaraki and All for One. He's like, they're doing whatever they want. Yeah, Nagant's the only one that All for One's given any orders to. Everybody else, he's like, just go do whatever. And the heroes, I think, they kind of underestimate the villains a little bit in this sense, because they're like, oh, well, All for One's gave them orders. I'm like, not really. The villains just know that they'll get caught if they just run around the open. So the smart ones, the dangerous ones, are the ones hiding in the shadows, right? So yeah, no, they kind of know what they're doing. And then I do like the idea of Deku, like, I love how he's framed there. So we get these two other guys, right? And honestly, it helps seeing them in color because you can see their outfits are the same colors. They clearly were working together. Like, they have military gear on. And so the brother, the first user, talks about how Banjo released his power first. Surprising no one because it's Banjo and that kind of tracks with his personality, right? And then Danger Sense actually came second, and which he seems like, okay. And then Shimura and In also agreed, which that seems like it didn't take much effort. And so he's like, you guys need to cooperate as well. But I do like the way that we track with these two. And of course they have the two opposite colored hair. I feel like we have like a love triangle with the three first users, right? I feel like there's a love triangle there. And I felt this reading the manga. I was like, if you get to go back and read the manga for the chapters that this episode encompasses, you definitely should, because there's an amazing panel. I remember I made a Tumblr post about it years ago, or when this first chapter came out. It feels like years ago, where Horikoshi loves to draw hands. Him and Akutami, who does Jujutsu Kaisen, they just want to show off that they can draw hands. It's like their MO, to make us all feel bad as artists. But I do like that panel in that chapter because it shows the second user reaching out to grab the first user's hand and then like touching. It's very sensual. They don't show it as much in this episode, so you probably don't catch on to it. But in the manga, it's a very sensual panel. It's kind of like they're barely touching. It's kind of somebody asked if I'd watched Heroes Rising. I've seen clips of it, but I don't really get. I watched the first My Hero movie and it was fine, but I usually don't watch the movies for series like these because they're usually not canon. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's canon," but I'm like. I'm still a little bit on the fence of how I feel about Heroes Rising with Bakugo's involvement in that, and I feel like whenever we get to a point where we can talk about it more in the anime, I'll talk about it. But in the touching between the hands between the first and second user is kind of reminiscent of that from that movie, so that's what makes me think of it. But it's very sensual in the manga, and I remember when it came out, everybody was like, is the first and second user like, do they have a thing for each other? And I was like, it seems like it. Which everybody was making comparisons to Baku Deku because the second user kind of looks a little bit like Bakugo, a wee bit. And so everybody was making comparisons, being like, oh, well, it's the OG Baku Deku. And I was like, ugh. But it almost seems like a love triangle because you have the first user and the second user, that if you want to argue they were in a relationship, we don't know much about them, so it's hard to say. But then you have the second user and the third user who seemed like they were companions and comrades for longer. So is it like a love triangle of the first three users that were the foundation of All for One? What can we do with that? So, and then Banjo comes in. But yeah, so it's interesting. And the third user is all about like, hey, we were around during the darkest time. They're like such boomers. The second and third user are such boomers. They're like, back in our day, we had to walk uphill both ways and 5 feet of snow. Like, that's how the third user comes across. He's like saying, well, back in our day, we were dealing with All for One at the height of his power when things were the most chaotic, worse than they are here. And they're like, we, had to deal with all this, so we know the danger that's involved. These guys, the 4th through 9th users, they don't know anything. So he's like, why should we help this kid that doesn't know anything? Why should we put our faith in him, right? They are not sold on the power of Deku. They're like, we live during the cruelest era. And so they're like, All for One could spread his control. He could control people without them even knowing that he was controlling them. And it's like, yeah, which he's kind of doing now with Lady Nagant, just so subtly, right? He's like, those who are under control were unaware. And so they're like, yeah, to get at your brother, we had to use many lives as stepping stones. They know what it's like to kill people for a goal. They're like, we've had to sacrifice lives to get where we were. So they don't think Deku is ready for that. They're like, is this kid going to be able to do whatever it takes? They're like, he comes in with his lofty idealistic goals saying he's going to save the guy that's our enemy. Like, how does that even work? And I like that the brother, who's so soft, he's like, a crazy illusion. He's like, don't you guys remember when you came and found me? Like, I like that he throws it kind of back in their faces, being like, yeah, it is a crazy illusion. And he's being very idealistic, but they're like, you came to kill me. You could have done it. You could have killed me, and then All for One would never have gotten my quirk. But you didn't. You saved me instead. I love that, and that's where the hand coming out. So he's like, you guys are just as crazy as Deku is. You've already done what he was supposed to do. So he's like, what's the point now then, huh? What's the deal? I love that. I love that he reaches out. And of course, he's like, the origin of One for All was my desire to not yield to my brother. It's crazy. We talk about All for One and One for All, and Hawks brings up the idea that why does he need Shigaraki's hatred? And they talked about it in this episode. I'm glad they brought it up. But they talked about it in the fact that All for One's kind of a shell. He doesn't have a heart. He's been around so long, and it's all this hatred. It's kind of just dulled him into this soulless lump of clay that's just trying to mold itself into something that it's not, perhaps. But what I think about it is, I think All for One doesn't hate his brother. That's the thing. Like, everything we've known about him up to this point, All for One doesn't hate his brother. He, if anything, loves his brother, but he doesn't think the first user understands him. He's like, I have this vision and this dream for my society, and I want to be in control of it. He's like, you could rule alongside me, brother. Come on, brother. And the first user's just like, that's not right. I don't believe in that. And so All for One's just kind of like, he doesn't understand why his brother can't support him and be with him. So I think it's more like this twisted love that he just doesn't understand, and he's sad because his brother's not alive anymore, and the essence of him is in this other person. So I honestly think he wants One for All, not necessarily to control the world. I think that's part of it. But I think that there's the ulterior motive that he just wants to be with his brother again. He just wants to have that spirit of his brother connected to him and to feel that love for his brother that he's lost. That's what I think it's going to lead up to. I think that that's going to be the thing. Now, All for One getting redeemed, but I think it's going to be one of those like bittersweet things where you're like, he just wanted to be with his brother, but he also has to die. So I think it's going to be one of those things. But I love that the brother's like, I didn't want to yield to him, but because you reached your hand back to me then, that started everything. That you are the catalyst for all this. And like going to that guy, going to the second user's eyes, he's like, you started this. You didn't kill me. You reached out your hand, just like Deku's trying to reach out to Shigaraki, and it created something. So don't say this kid's not worthy, because he's doing the same thing that you did. Like, something good may come of this, and he just doesn't realize it yet, just like you all didn't realize either. I love it. And I love that at that point he turns around, this Bakugo looking 2.0. And then we have the other guy who like looks like he has a very fox face, right? And then they turn around. And so I love the image of all of them. I love the taste the rainbow, like the Skittles version of all of them, that they're there. And I like that the second and third user, their color scheme swaps, right? I love it. And of course, if you're gonna go with the shipping route, because I do ship the first and second user, just based on what I remember reading, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I do, and if you look, the first user and the second user are bookending the group. They're the ones that started it. I was like, I love it. It's great. That will probably be the thumbnail, is all of them standing next to Deku with the rainbow, because it's really, really nice. I really like that. That'll probably be the thumbnail. It's either that or Lady Nagant, but I feel like I want to make Lady Nagant the thumbnail next week, because it's going to be her versus Deku, so we'll see. But yeah, I do like the pork cutlet, or he's sitting there eating. I like Deku's like, I'm going to eat this pork cutlet bowl that All Might made for me. And I'm like, good, eat that pork cutlet bowl, Deku. All Might put all his love into it, so you need to support him. So we go back to Endeavor dealing with this guy with the nail gun. And I like that Endeavor has realized Redestro has been putting out. It was a calculated move. Redestro was pumping those support items into the market, gearing up for this situation just to escalate the panic. And Endeavor has slowly realized that. And he's like, damn it. And then Best Jeanist and Hawks come in with the Best Jeanist mobile, the Batmobile. I love it. I do like the idea of Best Jeanist using his fibers to stop the trash. It's very much like Black Whip. I like it. Honestly, if you think about it, Deku's quirks kind of coincide, with the exception of Endeavor. Deku's quirks kind of coincide. Like, Black Whip's kind of like Best Jeanist's move. Float is kind of like Hawks' move. He has a strength like All Might. He doesn't have any firepower, so it's not entirely like Endeavor, but a lot of his quirks kind of coincide with that. But yeah, so they all go back, and the crowd is sitting there, and the crowd blaming. Endeavor does a pretty good job of keeping his cool throughout all of this. I do appreciate that a lot, right? And the one guy's like, it's all your fault. Endeavor's like, yep, I know. That's why I'm here. I like that. I like that Endeavor doesn't run away from the blame. He accepts it. He's like, no, I know that why I'm here. He's like, I'm here because I know it's my fault, so I'm doing something about it. I will respect Endeavor for saying that. I'll be like, okay, good. You do realize that. Good deal. And so, yeah, Hawks is sitting there trying to play chess, trying to come up with some strategies. I like the Hawks is on the outside trying to strategize what to do in certain situations. And meanwhile, Endeavor's trying to crack the code internally, being like, what's this all really about? Like, what's All for One's main goal? What's happening? And then we cut back to Deku, who's talking about going after the villains. And Endeavor does point out a good point. They are essentially using Deku. Like, Deku obviously knows that. He's okay with it. He's stopping the villains and trying to get the jailbreakers rounded up. But Endeavor's like, yeah, and Deku knows that we're using him to try to draw out All for One. Like, that's the whole point. He understands that. And of course, Best Jeanist making his puns. I'm glad Garaki is locked up. Glad that's happening. Hawks is like, I don't know what we're going to do or what his next goal is, but we need to take back One for All. He's like, we need to make sure that he doesn't get a hold of it. And so that's when Hawks brings up the whole thing about why does he need... It's like the physicality of it makes sense. Like Shigaraki Shigaraki's got an 8-pack. He's got a young, strong body, so it makes sense why All for One would want it. But what's the deal with the hatred? Because it seems like the hatred's tied to it. And honestly, I think that he just doesn't have any emotion left. He's kind of a huskless shell at this point. And he just wants his brother back. And he knows they can't do it because of what All Might did to him. Yeah, the whole thing of always smiling and always laughing, it kind of connects to Dabi, where Dabi's always laughing and smiling too, but he's always in pain. So it's like, is All for One always in pain as well? Well, physically, yes, because of All Might, but mentally, is it the same way? Probably. So yeah, and then we cut back to All Might, who is just tracking Deku and is super worried about him. And he thinks back to Night Eye. And Night Eye telling him, oh, you can sleep on a fluffy sound bed now. And All Might being like, I need to try to help keep Deku safe. He's like, I need to keep trying to help him. And thinking back to what Night Eye told him. Again, there's the thing where Night Eye knows how All Might has died. And he's not happy with it. And I'm like, it's like always in the back of my mind. I'm like, And then Lady Nagant. In the manga, this moment was great where she just snipes the phone out of his hand. Awesome. And she asked Deku to come with her. Again, that should have been foreshadowing she's not a villain. A true villain would have shot him on sight and killed him right then and there. But as Hawks points out, that's not their mission. They want Deku alive so they can figure out when and where and how to take One for All from him. So they need him alive, captured, and then when Shigaraki's complete, he can take the quirk for him, theoretically. Right? So, but if she truly, was as crazy as some of the other villains, she probably would have tried to kill him first. But man, I love, he's like a hired gun for all for one. I like that because the title is slightly misleading, and that's kind of why I may want to use Deku as the thumbnail because, hired gun, you kind of think maybe it's Deku working with All Might and the others, but no, it's her working for all for one. And then Chikara Overhaul's just there. So we established that Lady Nagant has worked with Hawks. She's his senior, his senpai. He's worked with her, which means that she's tied to the Public Safety Commission. Gee, I can't imagine anything shady going on with them. Because All for One says, you killed your former ally. So I'm like, okay, what could we discern from that? Why did she kill him? Why does she feel like Hero Society has failed her? What's the deal with her? Why does she feel like a victim? Maybe we'll find out next episode. Maybe, as I'm throwing Huck's toy. We'll see. But the fact that she worked with Hawks means that she's for the Public Safety Commission. And we know the Public Safety Commission is a little shady, so I can imagine her feeling betrayed by them. Hawks has been with them since he was a kid, right? So he's been a part of the system since he was a kid. So he may not be able to have seen through it as quickly as Lady Nagant probably did. We'll have to wait and see when we find out. But yeah, the idea that Deku knows who she is and Hawks is like, run away from her. She can make any of her hair into a high-powered bullet. She has a gun in her arm. Like, she's dangerous. Like, I just love how she's designed. Oh, she looks so good. Lady Nagant, Horikoshi. Horikoshi knows how to draw strong women, and she is like, I love how fierce she is. She's curvy. She's like powerful. I love her design. It's great. And Deku's like, what should I do? I guess I can fly away. But she has like, her bullets not only fire, but they have the ability to move. It's kind of like the blue turtle shell in Mario Kart. As long as if you're within a certain distance, her bullets are going to hit you like that, whether you like it or not. And I'm like, Deku can catch the bullet. That's great. But what else is he going to do, right? She's crazy. Yeah. And so we see Snipe, who is the 25th hero, talking about how his quirk, honing, was basically to be able to shoot something from long distances and for it to hit a target, which is a good quirk, very efficient, but hers is even more efficient. It's like that on top of it, right? She's a human sniper rifle. I love her hero design where she has like the belt with the bullets of her hair like in the thing there, and she has the big ponytail. I like it. She has the big long hair and the ponytail, and she looks so young there with precision. And here, like as an adult, she just looks so tired. She just looks so tired there, and her hair's all cut short. Meanwhile, there's Overhaul, and I do want to talk about Overhaul real quick. Season 4 with Overhaul, yeah. Overhaul was like the first villain to give My Hero Academia this sense of maturity in terms of its tone. The idea that, oh, we're getting into this figure that is abusive and dealing with some heavier topics. Okay. Like, it was kind of like a stepping stone of being like, oh, we're going into darker territory with Overhaul's character. Overhaul's character is interesting because should he be forgiven for what he did to Eri? No, not at all. But the thing about it is that Overhaul, as he's been broken down, he's armless here, at the heart of it, I feel like when you strip back all the layers of Overhaul's antagonism and you strip back all the layers of his actions, at the heart of it is kind of where he's at now. He's only wanted to keep his dad, his pops, safe. And he feels responsible that because he had his quirk taken from him, he can't save his father. So on the one hand, I don't forgive Overhaul. I don't want to seem like I'm sympathetic towards Overhaul, but it's really pathetic because he's kind of like just in a state where all he can think about now is how to save his dad, and that's it. Like, and he's just sitting there, pops and everything, and Nagant's like, you've lost your marbles. But again, Lady Nagant, it shows that she was a hero once because she looks after him. She took him out of the prison. She put him in the room. Like Lady Nagant, it shows that she's been a hero once. She still has that inherent desire to save someone, even though she's denying it. She's being awfully tsundere about the hero society, but yet at the same time, she's still doing things to help others. Almost like it's instinctual, right? It's still part of her DNA. And also, let's give Lady Nagant props for All For One is standing right in front of her. He could take her quirk at any time, and she has the balls to like pop off to him, being like, I didn't say I was doing your job for you. I was like, Lady Nagant, talking back to All For One is amazing. I'm like, girl, do it. I love it. I love her sass and just being like, why would I help you? And of course, he smoozes up to her being like, lovely Lady Nagant, you're different than the others. I need you to bring that boy to me. Can't you do these things for me? As he's creepily smiling at her. And he draws her in by saying that, he's like, this kid, he's like, you don't believe Hero Society should have false hope, right? Well, this kid's a false hope. He needs to be taken away before he makes things worse. And that seems to get to her. So it's like, okay. And she's like, fine. He's like, that society you want is never going to come around if he's still here. And then I like that he looks at Overhaul and he's like, oh, is he a friend of yours? And she's like, no. And, Overhaul's just kind of sitting there in a trance. She's like, no, he's broken. So I thought I could use him for something. That's such a contradiction. It's like, if he's broken, you should discard him, right? Unless she feels like she was broken at one point and discarded and feels like that was wrong. So maybe she's seeing some of herself in Overhaul and is like, I'm going to just bring him with me. Maybe he'll be of use, even though he's not. So, right? So I feel like that's just her being sympathetic towards him, but not wanting to admit it. And then, of course, he gives her a quirk, which is Airwalk, which we've established. We've established with the quirks and everything that having multiple is not necessarily a good thing, that sometimes your body can't handle it. So ever since hearing that in the episode, I'm like, should you have accepted that quirk? Is it going to make your body not work? And she's just treating this whole thing like a mission, like it's something the safety commission gave her. She's like, I'm just going to do my job, and that's it. It's like, So yeah. Yep, so she's like, I'll carry out my mission. And then we're at the end of the episode. So yeah, I really like Lady Nagant's character. I love her design. I love everything about her style. She's formidable, and she's actually a serious threat for Deku, right? Because so far Deku has faced villains that were either kind of crazy, or they were all just brute strength but no skill or intelligence. Or, Overhaul was a pretty big challenge for Deku because he was resourceful and everything until he lost, and Deku had to use airy and brute strength to fight back. But here it's gonna take Deku applying all the quirks that he has and his intelligence and everything to fight back against somebody that's as tactical as Lady Nagant, and his communication with the other heroes has been severed, so he's really on his own. So that's pretty exciting, though. I am very excited for next week to see what we get with the fight between Deku and Lady Nagant. So I do have some spoilers I want to talk about in the spoiler corner. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. But in the meantime, if you're not sticking around for the spoiler corner, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I will talk to you all again very soon with more My Hero Academia. Oh, I'm so glad I can talk about Lady Nagant. I'm so happy I can talk about her. I have been waiting to talk about her for so long this season, and I've been biting my tongue. And so being able to talk about her is great. I do like the battle between her and Deku. I think it's a lot of fun. I've forgotten a lot of it. So I had forgotten about her meeting up with All For One beforehand and that conversation they had. I forgot about that. I knew she was connected with Hawks, and I remembered that she worked for the Public Safety Commission. I don't remember all of her backstory. So the part about her killing a comrade or being responsible for their deaths, that I don't remember. So I don't want to know. I'm excited for next week getting to watch that because that's going to be fun seeing it again for the first time because I don't remember it. So it's going to be fun retracing my steps and getting reminded about that. That's going to be fun. I knew that when All Might gave Deku the bento box, it was not time for Deku to abandon the bento box. I knew we weren't there yet, but we're about to be there. I feel like that's going to be episode 22, and I'm not ready for that because we've established that All Might's been giving him the bento box with all the food, and I'm just waiting for Deku to, like, abandon the bento box and All Might being like, but Deku, I'm starting to get a little bit of flashbacks of things I remember. Like, I remember somebody blows up. Like, I think All For One makes Lady Nagant blow up at the end of this. I think that when he gave her the quirk, he gave another quirk as well. That if she didn't do what he said, he'd blow her up. I think that's how it ends, but I want to see how it happens in the episode. I'm ready for that, right? We're going to get her backstory next episode. I love her design. I love her present and past designs. They're great. So I'm excited to see all that play out in the next episode. But then I'm trying to remember all the ways in which Deku kind of goes downhill and spirals after this battle. Because you would think him taking down Lady Nagant, it would make him not spiral. But then the way that All For One takes her out and then what happens afterwards, I remember that leading Deku to just like, and that's going to lead. So I feel like we're going to have Lady Nagant next episode, episode 21. And then episode 22 is going to be Deku spiraling and leaving All Might's bento box there. And then I feel like that'll leave episodes 23, 24, and 25 to be Deku, like all of his friends like coming to his aid. I feel like that's going to be the situation. I don't know how they're going to end the season, though. I don't know exactly where they're going to end it at. I feel like episodes 23 and 24 are going to be Deku, like, getting back with his friends in UA, but then episode 25 is going to be a mystery, so, I'm very curious. I think we have 25 episodes. No, we only have 24. We only have 24. Okay, I was, like, looking ahead. I was like, what? So, yeah, that'll work out. That will actually work out, where we've got episodes 22 is going to be Deku's Spiral, and episodes 23 and 24 are going to be the UA kids coming to his rescue. And then he's going to end the season with him going back into UA. Good. That will actually be a nice season to round out. There's lots of things I remember about the rest of this season, if that's the case. But then there are also things I don't remember. Like all the stuff relating to Nagant, I kind of remember a big portion of it. But then on the other hand, there's lots that I don't remember. So it's going to be fun watching the next couple weeks to get refreshed on that part of the manga and to see what's in store. So, exciting stuff, right? I want to see here if there's anything more to talk about. The first and second user, I know we're going to use the third user's power in this battle. I don't exactly remember what it is and how we use it. It's something to do with force, but that's going to be fun to see. I still ship the second and first user really hard. Again, Horikoshi and them damn hands, and All For One. I'm ready for All For One and Spinner's banter back and forth. That's going to be great. But I do want to make note that it is sad seeing, like I said in previous reactions, I do think in the current manga, and I haven't read the newest chapter yet, but I do think All Might is going to die. And so that subtle reminder of Night Eye being like, well, you can just rest comfortably now, right? Because you don't have to worry about those powers anymore. And All Might still pushing himself to protect Deku. I think that's going to come back and bite him. But I don't remember how or know how based on the manga. So that part's going to be interesting, right? But yeah, so we've got the rest of the season seemingly lined out. I don't remember a lot of Lady Nagant's backstory, so I'm going to be curious how that goes, what we get with that. And then I do think that we've got the rest of the season lined out with Deku's spiral into his vigilante self, and then the students from UA coming to his rescue. I do think that's going to be a thing, and I'm pretty excited about that. Cool, so we won't get the traitor and all that stuff lined out till next season, if that's the case. Nice. I feel like it's good that if they end the season with Deku going back to UA, that'll be a good thing because it's a nice place to stop the season. It's a nice, succinct end of that arc. And then that leaves so much for season 5, for season 7. You've got the traitor situation, Shigaraki, the individual battles, and that will give Bones time not only to animate, but it'll give Horikoshi more time to get more content lined out for that season. So, but yeah. So I really like this episode. I'm glad we're at Lady Nagant. I'm glad I can say her name. Thank God. But I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I'm excited for next episode and to see stuff that I've forgotten and get reminded about what happens. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 21 of My Hero Academia. Bye.